Lee LeFever, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm happy to be here, Eileen.
So, Lee, you and your wife, you are the creative geniuses of a website called Common Craft, which is a website devoted to making explainer video, which is a category that practically you and your wife invented. But the theme of our conversation today is that your business could have been a huge business with hundreds of employees, with offices in New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, you name it. But you have made it a theme of your business right from day one to keep it a small business. In fact, a business of two people, because the two of you, you are big enough and you have created a book. You just wrote a book called Big Enough, which explains your philosophy and the trajectory of your business. So, can we start by you maybe giving us a little bit of background information? Maybe start from the time you were in high school and you were trying to decide what to do with your life, and then how do you went into creating Common Craft?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm originally from North Carolina in the U.S., and I came from an entrepreneurial family. My parents owned a small business as I was growing up, so business was always a part of the dinner table conversations, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur from an early age, really. But I always had thoughts early on that I would be, have a big company with lots of employees, and that seemed to be what you're supposed to do, and it continues to be what people think you're supposed to do. But in 1998, I moved to Seattle and eventually met my wife and worked as an online community manager and got really into social media and things like wikis and blogs and social networking. And um, at the same time, in around 2007, there were a couple of big things happening. One was YouTube was becoming a bigger and bigger force, and social media was continuing to be adopted. And I wanted more people to adopt social media. I kind of, maybe I regret that now, but at the time, I really thought that, society would benefit with more people being online on social media. So my wife Sachi and I decided to start making these short animated videos with paper cutouts on a whiteboard to explain these new tools and to do it in a way that our parents could understand. It wasn't about technologists and technology. It was about, why should I care about this? Why does this matter? And we did it without any experience of being video producers or educators. And those first videos, which explained RSS, which is really simple syndication that is sort of like the plumbing of the internet in some ways, and then wikis was our first two videos. And those videos became viral hits, or the 2007 version of viral, and were used all over the web for a number of years. They continue to be some of our most popular videos, and that really changed our lives. We so yes, did you want to jump in
Yes,
here for a second?
why do you have that initiative? I mean, a lot of people are into social media, and a lot of people saw the growth of YouTube, but not everyone decides to do a video to explain how this works. So, what was it that make you feel like you had to create this video, and your wife to jump on board with it? Because like I create a lot of crazy ideas, and my girlfriend just look at me and just ignores me. She doesn't jump on with me to every new creation idea that I have.
Yeah, that's a good question. Sachi joined the company just before we started doing this experiment, or just as we were doing it. We had done some traveling together right before then, and realized that we could travel quite well together. I think that if you're curious how you're going to work with a partner, that one of the things you can do is to travel to a foreign country where you don't speak the language and it's hot and you have a lot of pressure and lots of decisions to make. And if a relationship is going to break down, that's a good time for it to happen. And we found out that we could work quite well together. So we came home from that trip saying that however we were going to make it work somehow for Sachi to be a part of Common Craft. And it was a time for us to kind of think about resetting. and I had been doing consulting. So we could have been a two-person consulting team. That was what we were planning to do had the videos not taken off. But I love making media. I that's one of the things that's a really big part of my life is making all kinds of different media. And I love the idea of using video to explain something like social media.
And can you tell us about, do you had any hesitation or fears of jump? Because I assume you were getting a nice, steady paycheck. And it's always a scary jump to say, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to do these crazy things that no one have ever done before. There's no proof of concept, but I'm going to quit my job and get started on this.
Yeah. I was fortunate at the time because I was involved in online communities early in the sort of evolution. So I was known at the time for being an expert in online community management, and I knew that I could continue consulting if I needed to. That would be fine. Um, and Sachi could probably join me in that. But the thing about the videos is they were very simple. They didn't require investment. They were only a matter of taking time to do and experimentation. So it wasn't like that we were putting our life savings into this video idea. It was really a hobby. It was really something we had no expectations that it would actually change our lives. That was a total surprise to us. So I think the lesson from that is I always encourage people to, like you're saying, explore your crazy ideas. Like think about like what are you passionate about, and is there anything you can create that is just an expression of that passion? And your passion, I think, is what people respond to. If they see that you are passionate and that you are working hard to put something new into the world, then there might be a chance they'll respond.
So, Lee, I have probably, I don't know, about 10 different friends who they say, I would like to become, I would like to work on my own one day. I would like to, I don't know, teach Spanish, teach English, do this other art craft. And they talk about it and they are even dissatisfied with their job. Yet, I think they let inertia take over the whole life. They never make that step. And you took it. Can you give us, I don't know, some tips of how to get out of that grippy inertia and just do something? Because that's all it takes. In your case, there are simple videos. All your biggest investment was your time. And
Mhm.
you had the creativity to put them together. But we can see from the first video it's not rocket science. You just have a whole bunch of cut out paper, and then you have a voiceover. A lot of people can do that. You just have the creativity to be perhaps the first one, but it's not difficult. And a lot of people have a lot of creative idea, and they are so afraid to just create that. I don't know. You could even just create a Facebook page. You
Mhm.
don't even have to make a website.
Yeah, I think that the fear of failure is very real, and I think that people, one of my friends, Austin Kleon, who wrote the book Steal Like an Artist, talks a lot about how, and other people talk about this too, that, when you're a child, you create all the time. And you never think about failure. You never think about how it could be better. And I wish that people could return, and myself included, could return to that feeling of just letting go of other people's perceptions. And that's so hard to do. I think that one of the ideas that matters to me is thinking about it not necessarily in business terms, not necessarily about how someone's going to react or how you're going to sell it, but for a while doing it for yourself, like thinking inwardly about like, is this adding to my quality of life for me to be spending time doing this instead of looking at my phone or watching TV?
Right.
And making it a hobby that you're creating something. And that doesn't have to be a video. It could be all sorts of things. It could be a podcast.
Right.
um,
Right.
and it is hard for people. It's hard for everyone, I think, to try new things. And I don't have the secret to helping people get out of that idea. But one of the things that we had going for us, and this is a more of an American perspective, is that Sachi, while I was starting doing Common Craft as a consultant, she kept her job, and so we had health insurance, and
Right.
so
Okay.
and a steady paycheck. So it helped to have a partner that could support us even during the startup phase when there were no customers for many months.
Right. Okay. So you got this crazy idea and you start getting clients and Sashi joined you. So, and your first video, I think it was 2007, and it happened to be a great success. Can you tell us what happened after that?
Yeah. So the video was a viral hit almost immediately and changed our lives very quickly. And we got lots of views and lots of comments and things like that. But there was no clear business model at the time on YouTube. You couldn't make money on advertising. This is the very early days of YouTube. So we started being hired by companies to make videos that explained their projects. And for a long time, it was exciting and we made really good money. Our second client was Google, and they asked us
Right.
to explain Google Docs. And that really put our work, it took our work to another level in terms of demand for our services. And we took a step back about a year in and thought about like what business do we really want to be in? Like where is this going? How
Right.
we our concern was that we were a married couple working from home and we had a strong relationship. And if the business went in the wrong direction, it could ruin our relationship and it could ruin our happiness and our lifestyle. So we made it a point to think about, what direction could we take the company that would actually, um, you know, make us happier,
Right.
have us a better relationship. And maybe that means not making as much money, but it means focusing on what matters to us on a personal level, while still being financially successful and supporting customers. What else? What business models can we try?
Right. I see that from the beginning, not only you got Google, but you also got other big clients, Dropbox, Twitter, and the list goes on and on. But let me ask you something. So you made this decision of, putting your relationship with your wife first. Do you think that many entrepreneurs just don't think about that? Because many entrepreneurs, they just say, I'm going to create X, and then they start working 12 hours a day. They don't see their kids, they don't see their wife. Many successful entrepreneurs have one, two, even three divorces because they are so focused on whatever objective that is, we don't even know if there is their own objective or is the objective fit by the media. And so you were aware of this and you decided, no, I'm going to put my relationship first. But what can you say about the mentality of the other entrepreneurs that fall into that trap?
Yes, yes. I think that entrepreneurs, I want to say that I do not, my message is not that the entrepreneurial drive is bad or that the people who pursue business at a bigger scale are doing anything wrong. I think we need people who are out there trying to change the world. My message is that there can be choices made about how you think about your business. I think we've all grown up in a world where it's unquestioned that the reason you start a business is to get as big as possible and to make as much money as possible. And that is totally legitimate. I totally see that. But I think it can become unhealthy if everyone thinks that's the only way to do it. And I think some people, unfortunately, sort of outsource their values to what they see on TV or what they read about in the newspapers and think that the only way to be successful or the only way to be a respected entrepreneur is to get bigger and bigger and have the biggest pile of money. And again, my message is that is valid, but there are other ways to think about it. And then I think because of the pandemic, more and more people are thinking much harder about their quality of life and the life they
Right.
want to live, and thinking maybe that the pile of money is maybe not where their happiness comes from. Maybe it comes from other things like family, home, independence, time, things like that.
Right. In your book, you talk about getting maximum return on luck. Can you just define that term?
Yes, it came from a book by Jim Collins and a partner that I can't remember right now, but he talks about this idea of return on luck. And the basic thesis is that good and bad luck happens to us all. It's just a part of living is you have good things and bad things that happen. And the thing that makes a difference for a lot of entrepreneurs is actually being able to recognize when something has happened in your life that represents an opportunity, and then pushing full force in trying to get a return on that luck. And they use examples like Bill Gates didn't just like try for a while and stopped. He spent decades building Microsoft into something huge, and he had the luck of growing up in the right place at the right time. And for myself, I think a lot of privileged people, which I count myself, I was lucky to be born in a loving family in a great location with good schools and things like that. And also our timing was good with YouTube happening when it did. And so I think that the lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs is that it's not about being lucky. It's about recognizing that it's happening and working to get a return on that luck.
Right. Oh, you also mentioned that whenever you are being faced with a new situation, you ask yourself, what if it works? And this reminds me also of Seth Godin, who also says, this may work. Oh, no, I think he says, this may not work. But it's more or less the same mentality. So, how can you frame it when we are considering new opportunities? How, because you projected forward and try to imagine what could happen if it works.
Yes, good question. For us, we wanted to be a two-person company. That was what happened in a year after the videos. Was we came together and said that we were not going to have employees. No matter what opportunities came our way, we were going to remain a two-person business who works from home. And those were the constraints that we were going to work within. So with those constraints in mind, if a new opportunity came up and we said, oh, that's interesting, there could be a real need for that. And we ask, well, what if it works? If it actually works, then to grow, would we have to hire employees? Would we have to have an office? And if the answer was yes, then we would say, I don't know if we want to do that. That might not be the right direction for us. So I think that thinking about, I think that in the abstract, a lot of business ideas seem attractive. They seem like, oh, they're going to be so amazing. But the reality is that running a business, no matter what the business is, has things about it that grow tiring and grow exhausting, and working with maybe people that you wouldn't necessarily want to spend time with. And if you think about what if it works, if I wake up every day working in this market, and having my business be a subject to this market or this environment, then it can really show you like, maybe I don't want that, or maybe there's other opportunities that fit better with my values.
Right, it's almost like the rock star that you see it in the stage, and you say, "Oh, that would be nice to be like that rock star," and then you have to think, "Okay, but this rock star, he never sees his family, or she never sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Is always practicing, is always in environments that maybe he or she would rather be home." Or let's
Mm-hmm.
take now a new hero, Elon Musk, who says that in order to be where he is, he has to work 120 hours per week. So, a lot of people admire, they will say, oh, I would like to be like Elon Musk, but how many people are willing to work 120 hours per week? So this is the price if whatever you are looking at, if it works. And in your case, you decided not to pay that price.
Yeah, that's right. I think that part of being small and being a two-person business means that you're also very agile. So it's easy to make decisions and to change direction. So if you're asking, what if it works, and having to say, I don't think that we can do that opportunity, because you're agile, you actually have more opportunities to change direction and to try new things. It's, once you start getting bigger and bigger, you slow down and it's much harder to change. And that's one of the things I really like about being big enough, is that agility. And I think, as we've seen with the pandemic, when the world sort of gets turned upside down, the agile businesses are the ones that can react and do better in a lot of cases.
Right. Another question, Lee. So I started as a personal finance blogger, and you use a term in your book that I have never used before, which is Monatorium, and there's a whole philosophy behind it. So can you explain what that is?
Sure, sure. I don't, it doesn't surprise me that you don't know it. Our friend, as far as I know, our friends Ryan and Sharon invented the word, so I borrowed it from them. But it is
Right.
the idea is that it's a moratorium on spending money. So we call it the Monatorium. And we've been doing it for many years, maybe 15 years. And it became a way for us to be able to afford something like a home renovation or a big trip. And what we would do is we would go into monatorium mode, or we would live the monatorium. And that meant starting on a certain date, changing our lifestyle into a very low expense lifestyle. And that means choosing not to go out to eat, only entertaining at home, not traveling, except for things like camping and affordable things. And overall, just having a perspective that we are in money saving mode. And it was often for a specific goal. And for us, for me, it started to be in the beginning, I didn't like it. But the multiple more times we did it, the more I learned that it was a game that we could play together and that we could see the challenge of doing it. And today, and then thinking about it and writing the book, the Monatorium became something that just seems like the most responsible way to live. I think we
Right.
all, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people who um, are forced to live that way. And I think that I think we all should be more financially responsible. And the moratorium I think of as like a training program that if you're serious about your finances, then I think you should train yourself to be able to flip a switch and go into a low expense mode so that you can weather a storm. And a lot of people are
Right.
doing that now, but that's really what the moratorium is about is training yourself to be able to live in an extremely low expense world so that
Right.
you can either accomplish a goal or weather a storm.
Yeah, and I feel when you are talking about this philosophy, you are fighting against millions of dollars in advertisement that you should spend more money. I have a friend who just got a salary increase. She's a nurse, and this is a profession on high demand right now. She got
Hmm.
a raise, and the first thing she does is to buy a new car because she deserves it, because it reflects her new position. So, and uh, this is what we are being fed every day. That as soon as we have extra few dollars, we should show those few dollars to the public so people see that we got that bigger job or whatever. So this
Yeah,
philosophy is just contra culture, I would say.
it is. It's very, very strong. It's like consumerism and like keeping up with the Joneses. Um, I wish I had the answer to that. It's such a huge thing in society. I wish that I could help with that. But that is part of the message of Big Enough is that there's other ways to think about that. That I think that if you imagine someone looking across the street and seeing a neighbor that's got a nicer car than them, instead of thinking about how they can get an even nicer car, to appreciate that they have things that that person doesn't. Like they might have a happier family, or they might have a better home life, or they might have a better work-life balance or a better quality of life, and to feel like that is a version of success that matters too. Like I think that there's wealth can be can take a lot of forms. It doesn't have to be money.
Okay, so in your book, you explain your decision on 2012 to write a book called The Art of Explanation, but you didn't cover the decision of writing this book big enough. So can you tell us why? I mean, you are happy, you are being productive, you got business, you're living Orca Island, with this beautiful scenery. Why sit down and write this book?
Oh, that's a good question, Elaine. I think it comes from having conversations not unlike this one before the book, where people would ask about Common Craft, and I would explain the business, and they would say, "Wow, I really would love to know more about that. I want to know how that works and how you think about these things." So that was the first thing I thought about it, and I also felt like that when we were over the last decade, when we were going through this process of all these different business models and experimenting, that it all happened behind the scenes, that nobody ever knew what we were thinking and doing. And I thought that there were lessons there. I personally thought that there were things that people would be interested in. And, having done it for like 12 years now, even more, I felt like that we had done it long enough that I could explain it in a way that had some relevance and had some weight to it because we sort of we have the receipts. Like we've we've been there. We've made it
Right.
happen. So I felt like it was time. And I think the other thing is that I love writing. I want to write more books. And this is a way to tell my story in the form of a book that involves our business and our philosophy. But I want to write. I might write a book about the Monatorium someday. Um,
Who does the writing for the scripts of the videos that you produce?
I write the first versions. I'm the sort of creative side of the business, and Sachi is the more she's our editor. So she edits the videos, she edits all my writing, and she's more detail oriented than I am. I'm kind of the idea person, and she's the one that's on the ground making it happen.
Right. And during the book, I can see you quote a lot of other books. So that makes me realize that you do a lot of reading. And in fact, we read a lot of the same people. Can you share with us some of your reading habits?
Sure. You mean like on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, yes. I mean, it looks like
Yeah,
you read a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mainly read at night. I don't often read during the daytime. I use it sometimes to not watch TV, and I often fall asleep reading at night. I use a Kindle, which I can also read from my phone if I need to. It works on both. I often highlight things as I read. I might not always go back and look at the highlights, but I at least try to pick out the things that matter to me. And I often just look for the big themes. There's books like Blue Ocean Strategy, which are actually quite academic. There's a lot of academic things in the book. And what I took from it was really the bigger theme. And that's really what I'm looking for is like, what's the theme that I can apply to my life? Like the data and the evidence and the academia, that's great. But it's really the big ideas that fascinate me.
Wow, great. Okay, Lee, the last question. Please tell us one more time where can we find your book and your website and all your social media
Yep.
handles and whatever.
Sure, sure. So my book is called Big Enough, and the website where you can find the book is bigenough.life. Bigenough.life. And then my personal website where all my writing is LeFever, my name, LeFever.com. And my company is Commoncraft, just like it sounds, commoncraft.com. And I'm fortunate to not have any competition for my name. So you can find me at LeFever on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, places like that.
What is your most famous video for Common Craft? So I can put it
Um,
in the show note,
yeah, the one that's very well known is the Twitter video.
the Twitter video.
That was one of the ones that really did it. That and the wikis in plain English. Those are two very well known videos.
Lee, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing.
It's been great talking to you, Elaine. Thanks for having me.